to The Third Act, an educational podcast for entertaining audiences like you. I'm your wife host, Gracious.
And I'm your husband host, Jared. We're glad you're here.
So how are you doing on a scale of melting to sparkling today?
Today, I am feeling bubbly.
Bubbly.
Yeah, it might be because of the sparkling water that I drank at dinner. It might be because today was like nothing but the best parts of my life that I enjoy. I had a wonderful, peaceful morning with my wife. I got to do only the fun parts at my day job. Talked with a friend about a potential new work opportunity.
Ooh.
Tikka masala for dinner. And went on a very fun, goofy walk prior to podcasting with you. So, yeah, I'm feeling very bubbly.
Bubbly. That's a good word.
On a scale of melting to sparkling, how are you feeling?
I am feeling like a blueberry that was stepped on.
Oh, that's so tragic. I'm so sorry for you.
Well, just because a blueberry is like fun and goofy, but also I'm really tired. And
So are
I
you
did a
feeling
lot of
squished?
work. So I'm feeling a little squished. Yeah. Not in a bad way.
I think it's because we
In,
were
like,
talking about
the
Veggie
best
Tales
way
beforehand.
possible.
So the fact that you're saying that like Madame Blueberry has been squished, like I'm horrified right
not
now.
Madame Blueberry. Just a regular blueberry.
A non-cognizant blueberry.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and
Are
I
you
kind of,
okay?
I don't know. Good question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, if you need anything, let me know.
Okay, well.
If you need your water bottle filled, let me know.
I got it filled. I'm good to go. Mm. Well, tell me about your week, Jared. Well, tell these people about your week. I already know what happened this week.
You do. I had the opportunity to audition for a community theater production of Bright Star.
Woot woot.
And unfortunately, they did not have a role for me, which is par for the course. That's how this industry works. You win some, you lose some. So I was a little sad and a little bummed about that, but it's okay because we have plans this summer. We're still in the process of saving up to buy our first house.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe that'll happen this summer.
Yeah.
And I can devote my time and energy to that. I was at the library earlier this week with one of my clients, and I found the book How to Eat, Mark Bittman and David L. Katz, MD, respectively. It's very good. All your food and diet questions answered. It's very professional, very educated, a little bit comical, a little bit sassy. I love that in a book.
Gotta have that.
So it's been a good read. And I recently downloaded the app iNaturalist.
Oh.
It allows you to take a picture of something that you see in nature, and it identifies what the plant's flora or fauna is, or animals included, and tell you what it is. And sometimes the pictures that are taken and logged are actually very helpful for scientists and nature researchers.
Oh, cool.
So you get to see cool, fun things and maybe help out scientists. So I was having fun with it today. Taking pictures of all the bugs outside our work building. Turns out they're just termites. So. Boo.
Boo. Not termites. Ew.
Yeah.
That's
What's going
good.
on in your life? How was your concert?
I didn't know you were going to ask about that. So I had a jazz concert scheduled for last weekend, but it didn't happen because no one bought tickets. Boo. But it's okay. It got rescheduled for October, and we're going to make it a whole jazz band this time instead of just me on the piano. So we have that to look forward to. That'll be way better anyway. Other than that, though, I had a really successful weekend. I went on a girls' trip with my best friend, and we went to go see our other best friend in a production of Rent. We went all the way down to Virginia to go see that.
You told me about it. You said it was very good. This was your first time seeing it,
yeah,
right?
I'd never seen Rent before, which is surprising because it is a pretty popular one.
Yeah.
But I loved it. Also, the production we saw was very good, and it was very well cast, and everyone knew what they were doing.
You showed me pictures, and based off the pictures that I saw, it looked like a phenomenal show.
It was. Yeah, it was really exciting and really fun. And I just had a good time being with my girlfriends because I don't do that very often.
Yeah.
We went and got brunch, and then we went to the show, and then we got dinner afterward and drove all the way back. It was a one day trip to Virginia, just
One
the
day
two of
wonder.
us. One day wonder. And then I played Merida on Sunday.
Hmm.
So that was fun. I definitely was not great on the accent, but I was tolerable, I suppose. I just haven't done it in a while.
This was just a bunch of Disney princes and princesses, correct?
Yeah, we went to a restaurant and we're
Mm.
having a bunch of kids were having brunch. It was a Disney characters
Oh,
brunch.
fun.
It was pretty cute.
Oh. Well, my event that I have coming up in honor of May the 4th be with you, I am going to be an imperial officer. And so I've been brushing up on my English accent
Oh.
and all the phrases. You rebel scum. Make sure to have your droid. Oh, shoot. What's the word? See, this is why I've been practicing. Have your droid registered. All unregistered droids will be smelted. That's the one.
Smelted. That's
Yeah.
very good.
And it's
babe.
fun because you're just talking about their dog. It's very fun.
That was very good.
Yeah.
You're going to be very impressive in that.
Thank you.
Okay, our last question before we get into our podcast
Oh, before we get in. Okay.
is
I was like, this is not the last question. There will be many more.
This question is related to our podcast episode today. What podcasts have you been listening to lately, Jared?
Oh my gosh.
This is your time to give shout outs.
I am a glutton when it comes to podcasts. I live for them. My first one, I have to give shout out to The Mindset Mentor with Rob Dial. It's a motivational podcast. First one I ever listened to. This was all the way back in like 2018, something like that. Yeah, first podcast I ever listened to. Super motivational. I love starting my day with Rob Dial. So like I just give that one for everyone. Like everyone go listen and follow Rob Dial. He's great. We as a couple listen to Morbid with Ash and Elena, murder mystery. They're wonderful, kooky ladies. We live for them. Tooth and Claw is one that I listen to all the time. It's two brothers and a family friend discussing like animal attacks and animal encounters. They do a really good job. They're all, nature, animals, some preservation, a lot of advocacy, and a lot of information. They do a great job. History That Doesn't Suck is one that I enjoy personally. It's just telling history. It's just one guy telling history stories, but they're fun. Often he's very creative and expressive with how he tells the story. So it's a great way often to hear stories that we don't often talk about in our history classes in high school and college. And then my bonus one is just the Conspiracy Files. It's just a really fun conspiracy podcast. Yeah, they're a blast. Always a hoot.
Very nice. So while you're like a podcast
Oh my
guru,
gosh. I never said my brother and me. Oh my gosh, that's like one of my favorite ones.
Oh yeah.
The McElroy
I
brothers.
was wondering why you skipped over it. We have a list. And
I totally forgot. Yeah, my
Forgot
brother
about that
and me. Woo! Love you, McElroy brothers.
See, I'm not a podcast guru. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of true crime. If I'm going to listen to a podcast, I listen to a true crime podcast usually. So that's Morbid or Murder with My Husband. But I have been into lately the new Severance podcast that came out, hosted by Adam Scott and Ben Stiller, because I'm a bit of a nerd.
Yeah.
And obsessed with that right now. But
do they just break down like is every episode one of the episodes from the show?
So it's like they're watching the episode while they're recording. Not exactly, because you don't hear them watching it, but they're just talking about each scene individually.
Yeah. Have you ever listened to the podcast episode? It's the ladies from The Office.
I've heard of that one. They also have one for Psych.
Oh, really?
That I've been wanting to listen to. Yeah.
Who does the one for Psych?
I believe it's Juliet and Lasseter.
Oh.
The actors for them.
No Gus?
Oh, well.
I love Gus.
The other people will
Pop in occasionally.
occasionally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Player named Gus. Always always a
Oh, yeah. I
blast.
remember when he was a radio star. Anywho, we have talked your ears off for like a while about random
That's what they
things.
came here for. If you don't want to listen to Jared and Gracious talk, don't
I
listen to this
guess.
podcast.
Hey, but they're here to talk about shows as well. So the show that we're exploring today, the reason why I asked about podcasts is because this is a musical podcast. Have you ever heard of those?
You're talking to me?
Well, sure.
Yes.
You're the only one who
yes,
can
yes,
answer
I have
this.
heard. I have heard.
So I thought that musical podcasts were one of a kind because I'd never heard anything else except for this one. But as I was doing research for this, one of the composers for this show that we're about to talk about compiled a list of all the musical podcasts that are available.
Nerd.
And there are like 10 to 12 of them.
Yeah.
There are tons. I had no idea. I thought this was the only one. The musical that we're talking about today is 36 Questions, a musical podcast.
Mm.
And I've listened to this probably 7 times or more
Sure.
in my life, just this musical podcast.
Yeah.
Had no idea that there were other things like it. But because of the accessibility of this musical, our discussion is going to be a little bit different than normal. We're calling this one of our wild card episodes, which basically means that it's not necessarily about a production, and it can be a discussion. It can be something else, I guess. And this one is going to be kind of like our book club discussion on 36 Questions. So I'm going to be talking about the story a little less and talking about the characters a little less.
Sure.
Because we're going to get to a point in this podcast where I want you to pause and go and listen to the podcast.
And then
Come back. Because, fun fact, you can listen to 36 Questions, the podcast musical, literally everywhere where you can listen to us. So it doesn't really
you get your podcasts.
doesn't really make sense for us to be telling you the story when you can just go experience the story for yourself in all of its glory.
Yeah.
So that's my little disclaimer right there. Jared, I'm wondering how you got introduced to this podcast.
Funny you should ask. You bullied me into it.
I didn't.
We were in the car one day.
bully
You go,
you.
have you ever listened to 36 Questions? And before I could respond, you hit played and forced me to listen to it.
To be fair, we were in the car for like 30 hours.
We were in the car for 30 hours on a road trip. So it was actually a really good
It's a
way
good
to spend
time.
the time. Yeah. How long's the show?
It's probably only 2 hours.
Close to 2 hours. Yeah.
Close to
It
2
was
hours,
a
maybe a
fantastic
little
2
more.
hours. I stayed awake the entire time.
Yeah, super engaging, super fun.
Yeah. So I first listened to it because of you. How were you introduced to the show? Because it wasn't through me.
I was introduced to it by a friend in college. So I listened to it first while cleaning my dorm one day. And I was just so excited that I could listen to an entire musical in its purest form
Sure.
while cleaning my dorm room. Best
Yeah.
day ever. The music is also very contemporary. So the songs are pretty catchy and they've been stuck in my head this week as I've revisited the show.
Yeah.
And I've suggested personally listening to this musical to at least 10 of my friends. And now I'm going to suggest it to all of you. Go listen to it. I'll bully you into it, just like I bullied Jared.
Yeah. Hey, babe.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you tell these people the background on this show. I tied my shoes a little bit too tightly and they're squeezing the blood in my feet. So I'm going to take care of that. And you talk about the show.
All right, I will. First, I wanted to give a little bit of background on how this show came to be. 36 Questions was produced by a company called 2UP Productions, which is managed by 2 people, Zach Ackers and Skip Bronke. Before this show, the 2 of them produced a podcast thriller in 2015, which is titled Limetown. And then since their podcast musical, they've also produced what they call a feature-length audio movie.
What is that?
It's a movie that you can listen to, is the idea. So it's about...
So it's a song.
No, it's like a movie. So it's basically like a dramatic reading. Think of it as a radio
So it's
play.
a dramatic reading.
Yeah.
Because part of a movie is that the definition of a movie is a thing you go to watch on a screen.
Sure, if you want to be specific about it. Well, you know what, though? That's what they call it, a feature-length audio movie. So we can
So
just
it's a radio play.
we can just call it by its preferred name.
I'm not going to argue with people who make 6 times the amount
They're
of income
also
that
not
I do.
here to defend
So
themselves.
I'm just going to, sure. You know what? Yep. An audio movie you can listen to. You got it.
The audio movie is called Shipworm. I actually listened to it
Sure.
on one of our trips
Shipworm.
across the country, and it was pretty fun
What
to
was the
listen to.
shipworm's name?
I cannot remember.
Gary.
It's been like 3
It was
years.
Gary. Gary the shipworm. He only has 1 leg because he's a worm.
Anyway, all of those are released on podcast platforms, Limetown, Shipworm, and 36 Questions, and they're on their website. And basically, what you need to know about these producers is they're super innovative and they push those boundaries of what a podcast might look like. So they're not about to do an informational podcast or going to just talk. These are like, you can think of them as radio plays with all the sound effects and everything in the background, and they're very dramatic readings of things. So Zach Akers, oh my gosh, I really should have looked up the pronunciation. Akers or Akers, Akers, and Skip Bronke approached their friend Christopher Littler.
Quick question. Is his actual first name Skip? Like, is that what's
That's
on his,
what he goes
That's what's
by.
on his birth certificate?
Probably not. I don't know. That's what he goes by.
If you're the mom of Skip Bronke, were you with child in utero for 9 months and named him Skip? Because if so, let's chat.
It's just a name.
Anyway, sorry, I digress. You were talking
They
about
approached their friend Christopher Littler, who goes by Chris Littler, about this idea of a podcast musical, and he roped his partner, Ellen Winters, into helping write it. So
When you
Littler
say
and
partner.
Winters. Partner. Sorry, not romantic partner, like
Writing
creative partner.
Creative partner. Cool.
Because before this, Littler and Winters started a Brooklyn-based art rock band called Chamber Band.
These dudes just be sliding all over the place.
They're doing a lot. But while they have that background in writing this rock music, they're also into dramatic writing. Littler went to school for TV writing.
Okay.
And he actually did a few episodes of Limetown with Akers and Bronke.
Right.
And Winters studied playwriting, composition, and performance in college. So it sounds like they were the best team for this project.
Yeah.
Really. Long story short.
One might even say that they are best buddies.
Yeah, best buddies.
Best buddies.
So this idea came from the producers, Akers and Bronke. The idea was a musical podcast that they defined in one sentence. It's about a couple whose marriage is on the rocks, and the only potential way to salvage it is these questions. That's all that was given.
Fair enough.
To the writers. They were given this study that was done in the 90s. The article is titled The Experimental Generation of Interpersonal Closeness, a Procedure and Some Preliminary Findings. It was a study done by Stony Brook University. And in the article are listed these 36 questions that are shown to lead to love. Some of you may have heard of this study before because it's kind of a fun exercise to do with your significant other if you really want to, or with a stranger. It is shown that, but it is shown that by exchanging the true answers to these questions with one another, it could make 2 absolute strangers become close, to become friends, or even to make them fall in love. The questions involve progressively intimate conversation that really lead one to understand someone's background, family life, personality, values, and deepest fears and insecurities, and it finishes out with 4 minutes of sustained eye contact.
Wow. For some people, that is their worst nightmare.
Yeah, for some people it is. So Winters and Littler are both credited as writer, composer, and director. According to them, the process was super collaborative, so they all did all of those.
Writer, composer, director, a WCD. What are you? Oh, I'm a WCD. Writer, composer, director.
So according to them, they typically worked in the same room together with a voice memo rolling. So Winters would be at the piano and Littler would pace as they wrote. They would just
That checks.
they would just be experimenting and
Who had
brainstorming.
ADHD in the group? I wonder.
So early drafts of this musical actually had a chorus, like
Yeah.
a background singers, and a narrator.
Yeah, it did.
But they struggled with finding a way to justify it being a podcast musical. So they were trying to come up with this brilliant idea that would make it make sense that they're recording
Yeah,
right
because
now.
they're script show writers.
Right,
Yeah.
because they want it to be realistic
Yep.
because they're into this playwriting thing.
Sure.
So then came the idea of having the wife in this story. Remember, they're looking for a husband and wife to come together. To have the wife keep a record and record their conversation. So the action of the show is her recording. She's deciding to press the record button, and that automatically opened up all the doors for them. They knew exactly what to do.
So that's what I was going to say. I'm like, that's actually super smart.
It's super genius, actually.
Yeah, that's a great natural way of presenting all the material in an audio podcast form on a social media platform that is not known for its visual effects, rather for its audio effects.
Right. But you still need to make it an action of the character because you're trying to give them the agency. So speaking of the characters, shall we get to know our cast?
Yes.
It's not very big. There are two major players.
Two.
Judith Ford, whose alias is Natalie Cook, was left by her husband after he found out that she had been lying about her identity since she met him.
Scandal.
She had been going by a fake name, Natalie Cook, her alias, during the entire 2 years of their marriage and before when they met.
Yeah.
Judith is played by Jessie Shelton, who is most well known for this portrayal in 36 Questions, her participation in 2UP's other dramatic production, Shipworm, and for being one of the original Fates in the Hadestown original cast.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the original.
The original cast, not the
Whoa.
original Broadway cast, the original
Whoa.
cast. And then she went to reprise her role on
Yeah.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Our other character is Jace Connolly. Jared, do you want to tell us about Jace?
Yeah. Let me adjust my microphone so I can read. Jace Connolly, a teacher who left his home with his wife in Arizona to go back to his childhood home to think things through after he felt his wife betrayed him by lying. He is played by none other than the Tony Award winner, Jonathan Groff. My boy. That's my boy. Before this musical, he was known for Spring Awakening, Glee, Frozen, and of course, Hamilton. Post 36 Questions, he won a Tony Award for his performance in the revival of Merrily We Roll Along, and he is currently on Broadway in the musical Just in Time.
Which looks really good, and I really want to go see it, by the way.
My boy.
My boy, Jonathan Groff. And those are our lead actors. There are also small cameos by Johnny Marandona, who plays a child in the third act,
Oh, yes.
and Big Baby as Henry the Duck. Apparently that's the name of the duck or something. That's actually what it says in the credits at the end, by the way. And
I did not realize that it was an actor making those sounds. I thought they had just pulled
no,
audio of a duck
be
quacking.
it might be an actual duck. The duck is the actor. I feel like Big Baby is a duck name.
You're telling me that they brought a duck into the studio? Ladies and gentlemen, this is why theater was created, so we could get ducks in more recording studios.
That's the dream, isn't it?
Can you imagine being the wife of the sound engineer? Honey, how was work today? We had to sit for 8 hours while we tried to get the duck to quack in the right resonance. It was the worst.
It's rough out there.
Frickin' Henry. She goes, that's rough, babe.
That's rough, babe. Last little thing I would like to mention before we make you go and listen to it is our timeline, which I think could be important going into it. So the podcast, the majority of our story is recorded on Thursday, July 28th of 2009. And it's recorded on an Apple iPhone is the idea in the voice memos. And then later there's a bit that's the day after, and then it goes to 2010, 2015, and then into 2017. So it spans 8 years. And if you're counting the years that they were together before the official starting date of this podcast, it could span up to like 10 or 11 years.
Sure.
So that's the timeline that you're going into. This is a period piece. It's set in 2009. Okay. So be prepared for that.
When was the show originally produced and released?
It was originally released in 2017. It was actually released in 3 parts. So Act 1 was released in July.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on July 10th, Act 2, July 24th, and Act 3 on August 7th. So it was basically like you had to wait a week for the next section, I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah.
So 2017.
Cool. All right.
And that's all you need to know. So now...
What? No, there is so much more to know.
That's all you need to know until you listen to it. And I
Okay.
want you to find out the rest in the story. So I'm going to encourage you to pause this podcast, go and listen to the podcast by Two Up Productions.
Yeah.
It's in 3 acts. The acts are only 30 minutes to an hour a piece. And you can listen to it wherever you find your podcasts. And if
Get
you
it where
need
you
the
get
link,
your podcasts.
you can visit our description. And then you can come back and listen to the rest of this podcast.
Yeah, and we'll tell you all the juicy stuff.
All the juicy stuff. But if you've already listened to it, you can just continue.
Yeah.
See you on the other side. And we're back. Welcome back.
Here's the thing. We say welcome back. We all know you didn't go listen, you saucy little minx. You stayed right put and came right back so you could listen to us. See, I know what's going on. I know what you're up to.
Well, then be ready for spoilers if you didn't go
Yeah.
and listen, because there will be
Yeah,
spoilers.
you made your bed. You can sleep in it, you saucy little minx.
I love the way that this show begins with all the disjunct little voice memos that Judith has made in the past.
Yeah.
Particularly this one conversation that they have that I think is really poignant and foreshadows some things. Jace asks her, "Do you ever listen back?" She says, "Not yet. Do you ever think you're going to?" "I guess when I miss it." I just feel like that foreshadows the fact that Jace is going to be the one who eventually does listen back.
Mm.
And it sets up why Judith presses the play button in the first place and is making this record. Because she's obviously done it before. She's trying to record things that were important to her in the past.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it wouldn't really make sense that she's just voice memoing this entire thing. Right?
That's true. That's true.
Right. Got to make it make sense. What are your thoughts about 36 questions, Jared? Just initial thoughts.
In general.
Yeah.
Because it was recorded in a laboratory studio and not recorded live on stage. And because the actors, like, they're not doing anything else but voice acting, it allows for really excellent voice work.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are phenomenal in this role. And I think they're both allowed to shine because it is nothing but voice acting. Like, I do voice acting and I sound like this. This is what I talk like. This is what I'm like. Anyways, yeah, just that you can hear the minor intricacies in the human voice. And I think they do a really good job at going from the lowest of the lows to the highest of the highs, running the full gambit of human expression.
Yeah. One of the interviews I listened to talked about the struggle, not the struggle necessarily, but
Sure.
their focus on making sure that it sounded realistic enough so it was dramatic enough, but it wasn't theatrical.
Sure. Right.
Right. We're not trying to make it blank or uninteresting. Like, it still has to be dramatic. And they're singing songs. It's a musical. So it's going to be slightly theatrical, but they didn't
Sure.
want to make it like they were on a stage.
Oh, that's the other thing that it does really well. I feel like you don't really notice the difference between we're two people having a conversation and I'm Jonathan Groff in a recording studio
Right.
singing a song where I've been voice edited. You don't notice.
Right.
It transitions very nicely in and out of.
Yeah, another thing vocally that they were doing is there's not a lot of belting your face off. A lot of it was very intimate.
True.
A lot of the moments were very in person, close, soft.
Yeah.
Because
Mixed.
Right, mixed because they're in a studio. So that calls for a different type of singing, and they both did that very well.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
I would like to go through the songs one by one and just share some thoughts on them. We don't have to spend tons of time on each song.
For the record, Jared is sitting in front of his mic, nodding his head eagerly, agreeing to go through each song individually.
But it can kind of give you, there also aren't that many songs, so it kind of gives you a view of our thoughts on the show.
Which is why you came here in the first place.
Right. Hear Me Out is our first song that is sung by Judith, and it's our first real introduction to her. She's talked before this,
sure,
but we still don't know why Jace ran away or what she's coming here to do in the first place.
Yep.
But something that we learn about her here
mm-hmm.
is that she's not really taking any responsibility for her actions. This act of her coming to find Jace isn't necessarily an apology, but it is. She wants to explain her side. She wants to defend herself. And you kind of later see that in Jace, too. I think that's something that you notice in their relationship, that maybe that's what wasn't working, is that they're never taking responsibility for their individual
what's funny?
actions.
For some people, explaining their side is the apology. And it lacks the restitution. What can I do to make things right? What can I do to make it up to you?
Right.
For some people, they go, well, here's why I felt.
Right.
And to them, that is an apology.
But that's not humble. And to the other person,
it's not.
To the other person, it doesn't make them feel better.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't fix anything.
Right. An apology is not for the person giving the apology. It's for the person that you're giving the apology to.
See,
right.
she gets it. She gets it.
So I just think that I love all these songs. This one didn't particularly stand out to me, but I think they're all great.
Really?
I feel like this one particularly stood out to you, though.
It does. I mean, one, it's the opening song.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to, right?
That's true.
Because this song is going to set the tone for the rest of the show. Someone told me a long time ago, and I don't remember who it is. Musicals, the first song, you should be able to listen to the first song, and audiences should be able to use it as a gauge to figure out if they want to stick around for the rest of the show or not, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, a lot of what you're going to get from 36 Questions is featured here in this first song, Hear Me Out.
That's a good point.
One aspect that is a little unique and that I love about the song is the use of the drums. The drums for this number are quite impactful, at least for me. This time around, when I was listening to it recently this week, I felt like it mimicked heartbeats. Drums are usually fairly consistent, and the drums are inconsistent in this song, often mimicking that of a human heartbeat, right? It rises and moves faster and louder through our action when we're moving, when our heart's palpitating, and then it softens during the rest. So it mimics the verse chorus structure of the song, right? I thought that was very fun. And it also does a good job as it holds your attention as Judith is singing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The drums are really fun. They're really cool, and I really enjoy them. I also just want to be a drummer so bad. Anyways.
Yeah. I think it's a great opener. Yeah. I think it explains Judith and who she is.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about good writing, she uses the phrase, the phrases are, she has two phrases that are juxtaposed to each other. I was trying to work it into this episode. Hear me out and let me in. Ooh, right? Yeah, it's good writing.
Yeah. Very good.
Juxtaposition.
Juxtaposition, your favorite word.
My favorite word.
The next song that we hear is One Thing, which is Jace's song. And this is his moment to introduce himself.
Yeah.
He came out here. What we learn is that he came out for one reason, and that was to forget about Judith.
Ooh.
And
running away.
Or Natalie, I suppose.
Sure.
In this case. But yeah, that's his one thing. And then he goes on to talk about all the things that he's doing instead. Like the house that he's in is falling apart. He has to replace a light bulb, and he found black mold, and he found rats, and he found a duck that he's taking care of, and there's just all these things that that just keep happening. And he's like, I came out here for one thing, but now I'm doing these 20 things, and it's really rough. It feels very relatable, because that is the human experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts about this one?
Maybe I'm a little butthurt from Bright Star, but the word that I keep thinking of is propinquity. The search for closeness.
It's a big word for Elmo.
Yeah, it's a big word for Elmo. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, the show does a great job at expressing propinquity. Not about the song itself, rather more about the artist. My boy, Jonathan Groff, offers us a masterclass in the use of breath when expressing emotion throughout the show. But like, I first noticed it in this song, right? And he does this both in his singing and in his speech. At times he uses this breathy, gaspy sound to emote confusion, exhaustion, and frustration. And then at times he also uses his iconic, his well-known, that clear, crisp breath to emote clarity and honesty when he speaks about topics that he knows, things that he holds as true and as truth. So if you want to know how to use your breath when you're trying to tell emotion, look no further than One Thing with Jonathan Groff. It's very good. So I also...
well, speaking about Jonathan Groff and his masterclass and using his voice, the next song, Natalie Cook, I think is another very good expression of voice acting for Jonathan Groff in particular. I mean, Jessie Shelton as well does a wonderful job. But basically in this song, when they're burning her documents, he's basically grieving his wife.
Yeah.
And you can hear that, and it's absolutely devastating.
He's so pretty.
So pretty. I also love the harmonies in Natalie Cook. I think that one might be my favorite song in the first act, for sure. Following the song Natalie Cook, of course, we follow with Judith Ford, which is, remember, his response to Who Would You Like to Have Over for Dinner, which is the first of the 36 questions.
I would have dinner with Judith.
He would have dinner with Judith. And this is the first time that I think we actually really see his potent frustration with not just Judith, but himself for engaging in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He screams, right? But we were just talking about how he screams right before he does the song.
Yeah.
Because he's so frustrated with this whole situation, the fact that he's letting it happen. I don't want to have this conversation, but I'm having this conversation because I can't help but love her, right?
Yeah.
Very good writing.
Oh. This is where I'm going to insert, I'm going to get up on my little soapbox, and I'm going to say, because I always wondered, why the duck? Why Henry?
Oh, yeah, Henry.
Right?
Because Henry's introduced.
Yeah, Henry's introduced.
During this act.
And like, he's cute and cuddly, but I'm like, oh, Henry is important as a plot device. If you remember the film Castaway with Tom Hanks, right? When he's stranded on the island, he's introduced to the volleyball, Wilson. And people are like, what the heck? Why is he... Wilson is an object that Tom Hanks is then allowed to talk to. Otherwise, it's just him stranded. And so the duck, Henry, is the same thing. If one of the characters leaves the room, they're allowed to keep talking because they're talking to Henry. And so it's not direct conversation. It's not A to B, but rather they're like, okay, well, that was really stressful, and here's why it was stressful, Henry. Or they're able to deflect. Right. If someone asks a question that they don't want to answer, they go, well, what about the duck? Right? And they deflect.
Right.
So Henry serves as a plot device for the story
Yeah.
to give us, the audience, more information in a time when a normal person would have just sat doing nothing.
That's true. Well, this next song, For the Record, Henry plays that role in this song.
Right.
It's just Jace and Henry, and he's
Yeah.
talking to the duck.
To the duck.
And talking on the record, and then
Yeah.
Judith comes in while Jace leaves, and she's talking to the duck. But it's the same deal. That's another, in the second act, when he goes back to the car, when they're at the motel, and he says, I need to go check on Henry. It's just a excuse to get
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that duck
Henry
is like
a
super
plot
helpful
device. Yeah.
in telling this story.
Yeah. I love that. For the Record, I'm pretty sure is the most well-known song. It's come up several times when I've researched it. But that's not to say that it is. I just think it is.
Sure. One of.
Mostly I think because it introduces the 36 questions theme, right? The 36, 36, 36, 36, da,
Yeah.
da, 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 da. That whole theme is introduced in this song.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, I was trying to think about it, and as I was listening, I realized it's this show that introduced the phrase "for the record" into our relationship. We use it all the time. Whenever I'm editing, sound editing these podcasts, we'll have like "for the record."
Oh,
that like we
did it
say.
come from this?
Yeah, it's from this podcast.
Yeah, I guess
we
so.
introduced it
I mean,
into our
for the
conversation.
record is just a common saying.
It
though,
is.
too.
But we use it a lot.
That's true. And of course, it would come from a musical.
Of course, it'd be a musical.
Of course, it would be a musical. That ends our first act.
Oh.
And our second act, they continue to ask the questions, but at this point, the phone has died, so they've had to plug it in, and then they're restarting.
Yeah.
So when they restart, they're talking about how a lot of Judith's answers to the questions are the same as Natalie's. And of course, Jace gets frustrated by this because he thinks that Judith and Natalie are completely different people. But this introduces the theme that like Judith has been Natalie this whole time, that they're
Right.
the same person.
Right.
Right. That maybe she
She
lied
wasn't-
about her
she-
name,
Right.
but
She lied about the name.
yeah.
But she hasn't pretended, faked, or acted anything else
Right.
in her life. And she says this all the time. She's like, when I was Natalie, I was Judith.
Yeah.
It was the same person. And I get it because they need to tell a dramatic story. Otherwise, we as an audience wouldn't listen. But I'm like, homeboy, just get over it. It's the same person, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what brand of toilet paper you use. It's still toilet paper. It doesn't matter what you call it. If it's TP toilet paper, Dove's, Love's, like whatever you call it, it's still toilet paper at the end of the day, right? We just changed the branding, but it's the same product being offered.
Yeah. And this is when we do kind of get to see Judith's side of that.
Yeah.
Right. That this whole time, we'll discuss this more later, but I definitely, it's interesting to think about which side you're on. Like, do you agree with Jace or do you agree with Judith in this situation?
Can I say,
yeah,
at this point, we were talking about this probably like a week ago. I think we were discussing over dinner. I had shared, because I'm currently working my way through the TV show Dexter.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun, by the way. I had my hesitations before I started watching it. Very fun. Recommend to anyone who can stand blood and violence. In theater, in the modern musical, or in a movie or TV show, there is a point in the conversation, in the dialogue between two characters, where the conversation is realistic, right? Where it's like A follows B and B follows C and so on. And then at some point in the conversation, it deviates in a way that is not natural to human conversation, right? Right as they were about to reveal the big fat lie, the elephant in the room, the conversation deviates, and they go to another topic, and then they backtrack to it, and then they're back to A, and then they move on to topic G, right? And it happens again and again and again. And maybe it's because I'm trying to study theater. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I see and I recognize those moments. And the psychologist inside of me is like, see, right there, you're missing the point. But it's on purpose. Because the point is, as soon as you address the elephant in the room, boom, well, we've lost all the drama. So the drama is suspended if you avoid
it's a dramatic
it.
device.
Correct. If you avoid it and dance around it, well, not only is that more interesting for the characters, it takes longer before they reach the resolution, and we as the audience are held captive, and we're like, well, but you have to tell her that she's locked in the closet and the murderer has the knife, you know? There's the butler. It's always the butler. But we don't find out until the last 5 minutes.
Right. And during We Both, they're about to have the hard conversation, and then they're like, nah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they keep up with the questions. Right.
Yeah.
I do feel like this is the first time that they really connect, and you can kind of see how sweet and loving their relationship was before this all happened, which is really, you know, you wanna root for them. You got to have a song where you're rooting for them. This leads into, then they get in the car, right, to plug in the phone, and they're driving around, and then the question is asked, if you could change anything about your childhood, what would you change? And then she says, everything. And he's like, that's not a real answer. So then she goes into Our Word, which is about her parents, and it's so dark, right? She talks about wrecking her life 3 times.
Yeah.
This is actually a talking point in the Discord on the show, right? The line, we never rented a house in Sedona. We didn't see Camille the day she died. We haven't been in our boat in some years now, so we don't care what you found inside.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know what the heck happened to Camille, what was on that boat. I don't know what the house in Sedona has to do with it.
Yeah.
Do you think those are 3 different things? Are they all the same thing? Wrong answers only. What happened to Camille?
What happened to Camille? Did you ever hear about the Girl Scout scandal that, it was the Girl Scout cookie scandal that went on in 2008? I think Camille was tied with that.
2008, though, that's too late. It has to be early. It would have been something that happened in the 80s.
It's wrong. I just made it up.
Wrong answers only.
I just made it up.
My bad. I literally said that. I think Camille, got eaten by an eel when she was on the boat.
What?
Hey. Oh, no, man.
An eel?
An eel.
Girlfriend, what do you think eels eat?
People.
It's not people! I'll tell you that
What
for free.
Have you ever seen Princess Bride? They totally eat people.
A made-up movie?
Hey, I said wrong answers
a movie that has
only.
rodents of unusual size in it? Oh my gosh.
I said wrong answers only, okay?
Eaten by an eel? Wow.
It's rough for her.
That's dark.
Hey, it's a dark song. She goes on to talk about how
No, you do. You
she
are
almost
not.
died.
I'm not going to allow you to just transition out of that.
We
no,
must.
girlfriend.
We must move on.
Got eaten by an eel.
We must move on from
in the
this.
family's boat?
Yes.
And they did nothing about it? They just left the boat. They're like, that boat's to the eels now.
We already know that her parents suck, so.
I mean, fair enough.
They would let that go.
Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you keep my mat in one piece, please? It's very fragile.
I am.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Playing.
It's really fun, though, right? It's very fun.
Anyway, our next song is A Better Version, which might be my personal favorite song in the show. It's just really sweet and sad, and it's...
I'm going to pull the 2-year-old card. Why?
Really? This is just the moment where we're supposed to empathize with Judith, and this is where we see some of her redeeming qualities. That her life was so horrible, which we see in Our Word before she met Jace, that she likes to say that her life didn't start until she met him. And so she tells her whole story, and I guess you could see it as a sob story, but I see it as her being vulnerable for the first time. These 2 songs, Our Word and A Better Version, this is the moment where she's actually vulnerable for a moment. When before, her coping mechanism, right, is to crack jokes or to deflect or to not take responsibility. But these are moments where she's genuinely saying, I felt like my life had ended when you left because my life began when I met you, right?
Sure. Which is very poetic.
It is. It is. And then they kiss on the beach.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Mwah.
That's
And
gross. Cut
then
that out.
go to a motel, have a huge fight, and ends with Jay singing Reality, which is another song that just breaks my heart because, he's heartbroken, right? This is his moment where he's being vulnerable. This song also introduces one of the themes of reality versus truth that continues throughout the story.
Yeah.
The difference between reality and truth and what they have to do with each other. That
Ooh.
someone's reality could be different from another person's reality.
Yeah.
And someone's truth could be different from someone else's truth, right? So the truth is a little more relative and a little more gray area than we think it is.
Sure.
That continues throughout the story. But Jace, in this moment, is trying to hold on to his concept of reality. He can't fathom any other ideas. But as we see later in the story, his idea of reality starts to change. Do you have any thoughts on this theme of reality versus truth?
Always cracks me up that he can't fathom that a girl named Natalie is actually named Judith, but he's totally fine building emotional reliance on a duck.
Building emotional reliance
Yeah.
on the-
Yeah, he relies on Henry. So that's a fine reality. He's like, that's my truth. My name isn't Natalie, it's Judith. What? That's it, abandoned ship.
Well,
And
I
he
think
can't.
the idea is that she lied to him, so he feels
Right.
betrayed,
And
right?
and he explains, he's like, okay, so what else did you lie about?
Right.
Right.
And
'Cause
we
if I
do
don't
see
even
that
know
she
your
lied
name-
about her background.
Right.
Her parents are alive when she had said that they were dead.
Yeah.
The other thing that is important to remember that's reiterated is that when she was approached with the question,
Mhm.
hey, do you know who Judith Ford is? Or, hey, are you Judith Ford? She still denied it.
Uh,
And he says, which makes you not just a person who lies, that makes you a liar.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough.
And we do see that she is a bit of a pathological liar.
True.
I think
And also a little bit manipulative.
Right. She totally is. Like, they both have their issues.
Mhm.
It's like the last 5 years, similar to,
Sure.
that they both have their issues, but you blame Jamie more because he
He
was
did something.
probably actually the problem.
Yeah.
And in this
Am I the
situation,
drama?
I do feel like Judith is the problem.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that Jace doesn't contribute to the
Oh, sure.
problems. Or
Oh,
that's
sure.
my opinion. Do you have a different opinion? Do you side with Jace or Judith? Team Jace or Team Judith?
Oh, Team Jace all the way.
Yeah.
Homeboy was just looking for a relationship.
That's true.
That's all. Just wanted an honest partner.
Yeah. It's true. And then she wasn't honest. But I think the second act in particular allows us to see Judith's side, which is important, not only to the drama, but also to empathizing with the, you want to love both of the characters.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the end of the second act. He leaves. Third act starts with Answer 36, which is a throwback to Hear Me Out. It's like basically the same with different lyrics. She also calls out a better version by saying she's going to build a better version on my own. She's completely broken and alone at this point, but is able to pick herself up and decides to start a new life. She records her answers to the rest of the questions and
Yas, queen.
takes the phone and leaves it in the mailbox and is like, I'm done with this. Leaves.
Can you imagine losing your legal documents and your phone and your name and your relationship all in 24 hours? That's a Greek tragedy if I ever heard it.
That's pretty rough for her. Third act starts with Listen Back because guess what? Time has gone by.
Hey-o.
And this time, I believe we go from 2009 to 2010 to 2014, 15. Like, this is our time. This is our passage of time.
Yeah.
And it helps us into Jace's thoughts as the time passes. He'll pick it up and be like, I'm going to talk about my feelings. No, I can't. Or pick it up and be like, I'm ready now. Oh, well, I can't. Oh, I listened to it and it broke my heart. And oh, I can't. Anyway, this is our time passage. Also, his falsetto is so yummy. So yummy.
My boy.
And then I think this song really shows how sometimes all we need is time to heal our wounds.
True. Because often in a fun modern musical in which the plot takes place in 24-hour period, people reach a resolution.
In 24
right at the
hours.
very end, 24 hours. They're like, okay, I'm good, I'm fine. I just had my world rocked. Thought you killed my dad, but he's fine. Thought the world was going to end. It's okay. We're good. And like, that's not how people are. We take time. We often need to discuss it multiple times with people, with different people, multiple times before we're finally okay and ready to sit with our truth and our reality and move forward.
Right. After this song, the tension builds up and attachment. The attachment starts. And in this song, Jace finally makes the decision to hopefully get some closure, and he sends Judith the remainder of his answers. So this is the remainder. Right. This is his breaking point. And this is when he's finally, you can see that he's changed throughout the show to become a different person.
Yeah.
I think he talks about either in Listen Back or Attachment about how his perception of truth has changed.
Yeah.
At this point, because he recognizes as an adult, he goes, I lie all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I lie to my child and I lie to people because it's convenient and this and that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden he's like, oh, maybe I understand her a little more because she was put in a difficult position.
Right.
So she told a lie. And the other thing that is important to remember is, like, yeah, she stuck to her lie, but she did make a split-second decision.
Sure.
To change her name. And she talks in her songs about how she thought it was just going to be one cup of coffee and she could be Natalie for like one moment. And then it just continued.
For an hour.
And then she was like, well, I dug my grave. I got to lay in it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think the cool thing is when you have a story that does span several years, you get characters who change.
True.
Which is pretty cool. This concludes the show when Judith says, let's meet up, and they meet up at an Applebee's, and this is when we get to meet the little boy, and we meet Cooper, who's his son that he's been talking about, who is really cute, and you get the little cute little boy voice, and he keeps interrupting them while they're trying to ask each other the questions, but he ends up asking the question that is, why would you not tell the truth, Dad? And then he answers with this song, The Truth, and talking about how it's complicated and how it's layered, and that's how it finishes, and it's both of their internal thoughts. I personally think this is a good ending and it wraps things up. It does feel a little bit like a La La Land ending and that it's not a perfect ending, right? It's not like they end up together.
Happily
it's not
ever
like
after.
there's a happily ever after. There are questions because they might end up together, but we don't know.
Sure.
Right? So some people are unsatisfied with the ending.
Sure.
But
Always.
I think it's always. I think it wraps things up because you've seen this character development. You see that they're both different people through the end, like throughout the show. By the end, my question about it is, between the two of them, who do you think actually changed the most throughout the story?
Changed the most?
You don't really get to see Judith's side, I guess.
If that's the question, I'm going to say Jace. Because at the beginning of the show, his truth is, I'm married to Natalie. And at the end of the show, his truth is, I'm friends with my friend Judith.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a big change to go through. And along with that, as you said so eloquently at the beginning, he's of the opinion, how dare you lie? How dare you tell me something that is not true? Because he's our moral backbone, right? That's his character. He talks about wanting to reform American education in America. So we know that he's our moral backbone. And so by the end to go, I don't understand why you did, but I can understand why people lie.
Yeah.
And why you wouldn't have told me the truth in the beginning.
Right.
That's huge.
Like I wish you hadn't done that.
Right.
But I understand.
But I understand why people do. So, yeah. So that's my answer. You?
I agree. Well, and I think we also are given this space to see Jace change. We don't see Judith a lot. And
True.
when they meet up, she's not super talkative.
She's not.
You know,
She's very reserved.
She's very
As she should
professional
be.
and
She
reserved.
did all the
as
talking
she
for the
should-
first two
right,
acts.
Right. She did her work, and I think at this moment she's like, okay, well, I'm going to give
Ball's
you
in
this
your court,
closure.
buddy.
I'm going to give you this closure and allow us to like get together and maybe feel a little bit better, but I'm not engaged. Like, I'm not putting my heart into it because you broke my heart, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're able to see Jace's change, and he also has just a whole worldview shift in this show,
True.
which I don't think Judith necessarily does.
Homeboy went through a whole paradigm shift.
Literally. I would like to finish out our discussion with a couple of rapid fire questions. Well, rapid fire as they can be for us as we tend to talk. Number 1, what themes, besides the ones that we talked about, did you see explored in this musical?
Intimacy, connection, communication, authenticity, truth.
Yeah, we talked about truth and reality. I love authenticity, though.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's what I'm working on in therapy right now.
Whoop, whoop. Being more authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Judith isn't as authentic. Yeah. Well, thanks for that.
And Jace also could have used more authenticity.
Yeah, so true. Yeah,
right?
they weren't communicating necessarily the way that they should have.
Nope.
Can you give me the rapid fire question number 2?
How does the musical structure impact the story's emotional tone?
I'm going to put on my little school hat for a second and say that the structure of most of the songs is AABA format, which is verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. So that's pretty typical of like a pop or a rock song, which I think is what they were going for, more modern music.
Yeah.
However, they make it more conversational during the verses, but the choruses allow for these characters to still reiterate the points that they're making, because the idea is that they're trying to make their point. The whole first and second act, it's one big argument between the two of them. Who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
And this person thinks that this is the case and this person thinks that this is the case. So the verses allow them the verse and the bridge. Mm-hmm. Well, the verses allow them to be more conversational. Mm-hmm. The bridge allows them to bring in the drama. Mm-hmm. And then the choruses allow them to reiterate their point because they're making an argument.
That was well said, my friend.
So those are my thoughts on
the
musical structure.
Yeah.
Jared, does this musical remind you of any others you've seen?
You already said it, but as we were discussing it, I kept thinking of The Last 5 Years. Mm-hmm. Again, another young, cute, white, heterosexual couple going through marital problems.
I mean, not necessarily. It could be played by...
It could be anybody. It could be anybody. In the way that it's portrayed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, also, I thought it had great deep connections to the play that we did in college here, as written by our dear friend Kinsey Clough.
Which is based off of Rabbit Hole.
Correct.
Which is a play.
Yeah, I would love to see this as a play. Seeing the characters exist in a real world, in a real physical place, where they're not allowed to escape through song, but rather they have to live in the moment. Yeah. However, I acknowledge, because they go so many places and because this takes place over time, it is helpful to do it in podcast form. Also a duck. Right. Ducks are hard to control. They have a mind of their own, so it works
also, musicals are really good to indicate passage of time. It's really easy to indicate passage of time in a song.
Yes.
This last question I actually want to ask to you, even though it's technically your turn to ask me.
Sure.
What do you think about the 36 questions that lead to love? As a psychologist, do you think the study itself and the ideas are plausible?
Lead to love? No. Their love is so different to so many people to assume that you can just ask someone 36 questions and fall in love. No, I don't think that's possible. I do, however, think it's very possible to establish a deep connection. It is impossible to learn deep, intimate truths about another person and not feel some form of connection.
True.
The same way that we go to a movie with the excuse, let's go be entertained. And then after 2 hours of sitting and watching this person go through the hero's adventure, through the hero's journey, and we see every fear that they have, every joy that they want to, every goal that they want to accomplish, and we see it happen in front of us, we then walk out of the theater, and whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, we feel a connection with this individual.
Right.
And we feel for them, and we empathize with them, and we place ourselves in their shoes.
And that's why we go to theater.
It's why we go to theater, to build a connection. So absolutely, yeah, you sit and you ask 36 questions, and if you are being honest, being authentic, being vulnerable, and actively listening to what the other person is saying, putting yourself in them shoes, yeah, I would be really surprised if you walked away with no meaningful connection.
True. I think it's a really quick way to empathize with someone and to connect with them. Yeah.
They're also very good questions. It's a great segue from casual conversation to incredibly intimate conversation.
They are. So
discussion.
If you, audience member, would like to have a really intimate conversation with someone, I would encourage the 36 questions. Henry. The 36 questions that lead to love, they say. You can just look it up online. There are multiple articles on it. I'll link one in the description so you can go and
it would be fun
experience.
is if we posted a bonus episode of us doing the 36 questions.
Oh my gosh, sharing that with the whole world. That's so scary.
Oh, that'd be terrifying, right? I
know. We have done it, but we should do it again because I think we've changed quite a bit since we did them before. Right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is 36 questions. Thank you for listening. And go and listen to the podcast if you didn't already. And go and do the 36 questions with someone that you would like to be close to.
Yeah. If you enjoyed what we had to say, give us a like.
If you enjoy what we're making, give us a follow.
If you think that what we have to say could be enjoyable for somebody else, give us a share.
We hope you'll join us next week. Well, in 2 weeks. In the meantime, we know some of you have auditions, rehearsals, or performances. So please go do something in the sunlight and break a leg.
Hey, and happy Cinco de Mayo whenever this is posted.
Oh my gosh. Oh, is this going to be posted on Cinco de Mayo?
May the 4th be with you.
Ah, that's so exciting.
Bye.
Bye.